I could watch a movie Sucker Punch just like engrossed in the visual aspect of it. But the plot, no offense, I mean, the guy's made his money. It just okay, okay. But anybody that ever says to you they want to be a writer, it's because they have an idea for a plot. Like, oh, I got this idea for this great story. It's like, oh, let me get in the back of my mind, like, let me guess, you had this dream, but and the thing is, and I'm not saying it to be snide, but rather everyone's stories that they come up with, they're especially proud of. The old joke about everyone can stand the smell of their own farts.
Sure.
Everyone loves their own story. So, but instead I would say, well, let's remove plot. What's the theme? What does your story say about how you see the world, the human condition, just a particular issue that you feel strongly about? Why Godzilla is better than King Kong? Whatever it may be. Tell me how you feel about it. You look at a book I wrote like Hope. And the plot of Hope is that there's a woman who moonlights as a superhero. Which again, for the record, this is I talked earlier about now I'm going to write corporate superheroes. This is the first superhero book I ever wrote, and it was 15 plus years of my career. But the book is about is this woman moonlights as a superhero, and her identity gets outed during a car accident. And in that car accident, her husband gets put in a coma, and her identity as a superhero gets revealed. And at the end of the first issue, Children's Services comes in and takes away her daughter.
Right.
Okay. The book isn't about, a woman who's a superhero. Spoiler, I am not a woman or a superhero. So I can't write a story about the experience of a woman being a superhero. I can't write about the experience of being a mom. I'm not a mom either. Spoiler. But what I can write about is this theme. And that theme, and not to give too much away about the book here, and in fact, I'm not going to give away the plot so that if people want to read it, they can. But the
plot doesn't matter anyway, Dirk. Remember?
Well, right. That's my point, because here's the thing: the theme of the book is, would the things that happened to her happen to her if she was a guy? That's the theme. I can't write about being a woman. Let me rephrase that. I cannot write about the experience of being a woman, but I can write about a woman having an experience.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. E is black. I cannot write about the experience of being a black man, but I can write about a black man having an experience. And that's why Tales of Mr. E. The plot is secondary to the theme. The theme of Tales of Mr. E is, what do you do when you're the guy that knows the truth that no one else wants to accept? When society has post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's Orwellian. It's like it's like 1984. You're the guy that's not brainwashed, or you're the guy that's not willing to toe the line on this. What do you do? It's man against society. What you get is obviously a plot trope as well, but then extrapolate on that theme. Watchmen. The plot of Watchmen is paper thin. It's a superhero murder mystery. But he does some cool themes in there to an extent. But again, like I talked about earlier, it's rather the execution of the story that makes that book so fascinating. And I would argue, people, not to jump ahead here, but we said we'll talk about horror later. People are like, oh, why do you like horror so much? To me, horror is the best way to examine the human condition, because a good horror story asks, what would you do if?
Well,
so theme, make me feel something. The books that people revisit are the ones that give them that visceral emotional reaction, whether it's terror or happiness or it just says something profound to them. And that's not to say you can't have good plot-based books and things like that. I mean, plenty of people enjoy plenty of plot-based things, but I think as an up-and-coming writer, especially, like you said, to grab them by the throat, find your theme. Focus on your theme. That's the key.
It allows you, if you have a theme, it allows you to take, a book like Mystery and have 4 volumes, because the theme
and
remains
counting.
the same, but the plots change.
Absolutely, and you continue to evolve that theme as
Of
well.
course.
Right. But yeah, absolutely. Volume 5 is coming out this spring. That's so cheap. That's such a cheap pop. Sorry, such a cheap plug. But yeah, absolutely. And again, in Tales of Mystery, the plot is hell invaded Earth for 3 days. Monsters and demons invade the world, and then it just stops. And everyone wants to believe that the world went back to normal. And Mystery's this guy that knows there's still monsters and demons left, and knows that 3-day invasion was the first wave of what's coming next. That being said, the Monster Hunter plot has been done 1,000,000 times. The Goon, Hellboy, Hellraiser, blanking on the name of, not Mad Dog, shoot, I can picture it. Anyway, it's been done 1,000,000 times. Heck, the Monster Hunter in a trench coat thing's been done 1,000,000 times. But rather the theme about that post-traumatic stress issue. And because to me, the thing that was bothering me about those books, Hellraiser has some amazing runs. Hellboy is a great book. The Goon is one of my favorites. But Dylan Dog, that was what I was trying to think of. Not Mad Dog.
Oh, yes, of course, Dylan Dog. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. It was in there. It just took a second. I could picture the cover. But the thing is, to me, is like, what bothered me about those books is these guys go and hunt monsters, right? And then they just go back home and they eat dinner and they hang out and they do their thing. How? And to me, it's like, how do you live like that? How do you have friends? If monsters are real and demons are real and they can take the form of people and it's like, oh, what'd you do at work today? Oh, I went and killed a den full of vampires. It's like, you did what now? How do you interface with people? How do you trust anybody? What does that do to you long term? And especially in a world where everyone knows that stuff's real. It's not that they don't think monsters and demons are real. Everyone knows, but they're saying that part's done, bro. Move on. And Mystery can't move on. He's like, no, there's more coming. And you're not listening. And society says, we're over that stuff, dude. And if you want to keep bringing it up, maybe you have post-rapture adjustment disorder syndrome. Maybe you're the one that's traumatized. Maybe we need to put you away somewhere so that you can kind of be helped to realize this stuff is done. See where this is going, right? We're going to lock you away. And then you start getting into the theme of the marginalized communities and marginalized peoples and marginalized ideas. And yes, for those of you keeping track at home, I was writing about fake news way before fake news was a thing, and that's what's frightening to me is like this was supposed to be almost like Kafka-esque absurdity. Franz Kafka once talked about the nakedness of man when faced with the absurd. And we went through that as a society, and we're still dealing with the ripple effect of that. The QAnon and all these just politics aside, these bizarre notions.
Yeah, it's a scary thing to live with.
It's scary to see people do it, or see a bunch of crazy white people storming the Capitol and then shocked that they're arrested and they can't fly anywhere. It's like, what the heck? Choose your own reality.
Well, and that's just it, right? Because reality is different for them than it is for the rest of us.
Yes,
because of the power of power.
Yes. So, but that's a theme. And that's what Tales of Mystery is ultimately about. And yes, we can have monsters in there, and we can have dynamic characters, and we can have man versus man, and man versus nature, and man versus society, and we can talk about all that stuff, and all that stuff's important. But at the end of the day, what drives the book and what makes that book connect with people is the theme. Even Nightmare World, which was very much predicated on the idea of a concept, 8-page stories, each written by me, each one drawn by a different artist art team. All the standalone stories over time weave into one giant story. You could argue that Nightmare World is based on that. The pitch is based on the construct, and that's true. But the reason that book is evergreen for me is because I still, in those micro stories, those 8-page stories, there's a theme in each one of them. There's something I'm saying about the world and our place in it.
That's a really good point. How I don't know if you know the exact number. How many stories are in the compendium?
The Nightmare World Omnibus has 52 stories.
52.
There was, so originally it was going to be 13, then I did 25, then I did 50. Originally it was going to be 6, but then and then eventually the Nightmare Nomicon has one more bonus story in there. But all said and done, and then the book that's coming out later this year, Buried But Not Dead, has a couple of Nightmare World stories that kind of didn't become part of the canon. But I would say overall, I probably wrote close to under 60 8-page stories altogether. I don't know the exact number, but 52 of them are canon. There was a bonus 53rd story in the Nightmare Nomicon that would also, I would consider canon. And then maybe another 5 or 10 tops that I kind of filtered out over the years and put other places.
Yeah, and here's my point: is that as someone who's read the books, all of them do feed together, right? But my favorite of those stories, and you know this, is still the first one. It's still that lake.
The same deep water as you, the yes. 2 people in the lifeboat, yeah,
in the boat. It and it's not. Notwithstanding the rest of the stories and the way they all fit together, it's beautiful. But the idea of the first one still resonating, I think, says a lot.
See, and I would say that says a lot about you. Now, don't get me wrong. That's a very personal story to me, as a lot of the Nightmare World stories are. But the same deep water as you, for people who haven't read Nightmare World yet, it's a short story, obviously, as they all are, about a man and woman stranded in a lifeboat, and the woman is pregnant. And the woman quickly finds out that in his desperation to save her, the man has supposedly made a deal with these water fairy folk called the Marrow. And he said, I've made a deal with the Marrow to save your life and the life of our unborn child. And that's all I'm going to say about it. I don't want to give away the story for people that want to read it someday. But that's the I told the plot, and I've given hints at the theme. But yeah, the theme, the fact that the theme of that story, and again, taking nothing away from Len O'Grady, who's an amazing artist who just crushed that story.
Crushed it. Yep.
In fact, I wrote that story because Len told me about this idea of these fairy folk that live in the water called the Marrow. And when he first said, I go, the minnows? Because he had this Irish accent. He goes, I want to talk to you about the Marrow. I said, the minnows? Because no, the Marrow. They're these fairy folk, and they live in the water, and they trade the souls of fallen sailors with, the devil. And I'm like, this is fascinating. The Irish are horrifying. But
they really are.
But again, that theme and the thing. So the fact, again, like I said, the fact that story resonates so much with you, I think that says a lot about. It says a lot about me that I wrote it, but it also says a lot about you that is your favorite one. I have certain stories in Nightmare World that to me that are like my benchmark. That are like, oh man, this one, whew, that's what I aspire to anytime I write. I have to at least be as good as this one. So that theme is powerful, and we won't psychoanalyze you on the air, but I would encourage you to think about what is it about that story that speaks to you so much. And I know you're friends. I think I know what it is, why that story resonates with you so much. But I won't. I won't put your business on Front Street. Don't worry.
Bless your heart. Let's quickly change subject. I'm very glad you talked about the Necronomicon, because it helps me transition much more seamlessly here into talking about the crowdfunding stuff.
For the Necronomicon,
Dirk, for those who don't know, Dirk is among a very elite group of comic book artists that have found themselves to be in the upper echelon of those who elicit a very emotional